Hello and welcome to the Kilter Craft channel. I am Vanessa and today I'm going to share with you my Reading Rush TBR pile. The Reading Rush is a challenge that is done by Ariel and Raylene. Both of them pick challenges and over the week you are given the incentive to try and read as many books as you can. You don't have to read them all. There is nothing that's telling you that you have to stick to any rules. It's just taking part and having fun. I'm going to read through the challenges that I have written down here and go through the books and my reasonings behind. I hope you stick around and join me. So the first challenge was a book based on your birthstone, so colour, birthstone's colour, and mine is amethyst. I had an issue picking this book. There is not many purple books in the world. And I went on Amazon just to have a look for inspiration more than anything. I then went on like Waterstones and quite a few like bookstore, like online bookstores where I could like search through books, the book depository, everything. I even got all of my books out. Not many purple and not many lilac-y purple either. So I always think of like amethyst as being like a soft lilac-y purple, like really pretty. And I was really excited because purple is one of my favourite colours. However, when searching through my book stash, I do not have many purple books. The couple that I did have are in this pile. And one of them is not even of a lilac-y purple. So the book that I did choose for this challenge is Stephen King's Pet Sematary. This is a vintagey copy. I'm not sure when it was produced, but it was probably a while ago. This one is 1989 and it had a bit of purple in it. I've never read this book before. I've only ever read Christine by Stephen King. Really enjoyed it, but the suspense, the book was quite slow, and I find that Stephen King in a way he tries to be suspenseful, but I find that in the end it just turns out to be that he's quite a slow paced. He's put it out in a really slow pace that to me isn't suspense anymore. It is almost teetering on the edge of boredom. So I have to really, really concentrate to keep going when it is Stephen King. But I love his stories. So I did end up finishing Christine. I really enjoyed it and I'm hoping that I will love this the same. But I need more adventure and I need more fast pace to be able to just try and literally churn through a book. I am a very slow paced reader, so this is a challenge in its own right because it's 400 pages and I don't think I've ever finished a book of 400 pages in a week, so it's one of those things. Next challenge was, get my little Postit out, book that starts with the. I have picked a newish to me book that was, I think it was it this year or last year? Might have been last year, end of last year. Yes, 2019, and I've chosen The Binding by Bridget Collins. So this is based on books, which is probably why I picked it up. In fact, I know a reason why I picked it up. So I love that when other journals and things kind of sometimes describe books, I'll give you an inkling of the atmosphere of a book. And this one says that it's got the atmosphere of Sarah Waters and the book's nod to Philip Pullman. I read all of the Northern Lights trilogy at the beginning, well, end of last year, beginning of this year, and really enjoyed those. They were really good. The fact that it said gives a nod to Philip Pullman got me quite excited. Just because it's like there was a little bit of an element of fantasy and the adventure was really well paced. So I'm hoping that in some way this is similar. Cross fingers, we can only hope. But it's based on Binder's Apprentice, and he has the book of handcrafting and binding books. I'm sure it's something to do with binding the emotions or people's pain into books, and he finds his own book. So There's some element of like discovery. It's apparently got a bit of a gothic edge. I'm really excited for this. I haven't heard of anybody who's read it and not enjoyed it, which means it must be good. So, cross fingers. So that's that one. I've lost my Post-it. So, a book that inspired a movie you've already seen. And I got a little bit excited about this one because I'd already picked my TBR pile, and then watching the TBR pile of Raylene and Ariel, Raylene has picked the same. So I got out only a couple of books did work for this for me. So it was this one or The Witches of Eastwick. All of the others are books that I haven't seen yet. Is that true? Oh no, I could have read Silence of the Lambs as well, but I didn't pick that out because I wanted to cover the factor in case I needed to, like, you know, condense these down. So I picked, this is getting long-winded, I picked, instead of Witches of Eastwick, I picked The Virgin Suicides by Jeffery Eugene. I actually watched this when I was in my young teens. I am now 33. This I can barely remember, which means that when I read this, it'll be like really like a new story to me because I will not remember. I don't even remember the characters' names. So this is great because it gives me a book that I get to read with a whole like new perspective. Like I can't remember anything, hardly. It means that it'll feel fresh. And I like that about a book. I like to read the book first technically. Although I haven't with my current read, which is American Psycho. I watched the film first and then I decided that I really wanted to try the book. Sometimes happens. But I usually do it the other way because I find that the books are always better. So we will see. And then the fourth challenge was read the first book you touched, which out of the two books, I actually touched this one first, which is why I picked this. So when I went looking for them, I found this one first and got this one out, and I'm taking that to be the interpretation of this challenge because this is the first. So that's why I leant towards The Virgin Suicides and not The Witches of Eastwick, although The Witches of Eastwick, the writing is very tiny. So it was also another good reason to pick up this book. And then the fifth one was read a book completely outside your house. This challenge is the fifth challenge, and Ariel and Raylene have put out a little blog post saying it is your interpretation of, you know, you can change this as much as you want, you can do a hack, because in the current climate of a pandemic, a lot of us don't have the ability to go outside unless it's in public places where you may not feel comfortable in doing so. I am also struggling with a little bit of a health problem and struggling to get about. So I am going to do my challenge indoors with some rain sounds, and I have picked a book that is nature themed. So to cover the outside quality, I am reading about being outside, and I feel like that is enough because it'll make me feel like I'm out there in the wilderness, joining Cheryl Strayed in the wild. So I picked wild for my book. I picked this up a little while ago, maybe about a year ago after. So anybody who knows my channel and knows my knitting podcast, my mum had breast cancer a few years back. When picking up this book, I realised, reading the blurb, that her mum also went through that, and then she personally went through a stage of needing to find herself and put herself out there into the world to experience things for herself. So it's kind of like a Eat, Pray, Love kind of book, which it's about self-discovery. And I kind of really find these books really inspiring. And I also wanted to read it because of my current situation that I've just been through. It really resonated with me. So this is going to have some sort of meaning, I think, for me, and I'm really excited to pick it up, and I hope I enjoy it. Then the 6-book challenge was a genre you'd like to get into more. So I picked the Madonna in a Fur Coat. I'm not sure on how to pronounce this author. Sabahattin Ali, maybe? I'm not sure. I picked up this book last year, 2019, in February for my birthday. A couple of weeks after my birthday, I went to a bookstore with some birthday money and picked up this. Usually my partner's family buy me books at Christmas and things, but my family don't often buy books for me. So usually when I get money gifted for birthdays or Christmas, sometimes I go and treat myself to books. This novel, kind of this journal description, because there isn't a blurb for this book, kind of got me interested in it. So it says the novel is about a Turkish man who falls in love with an artist in the 1920s Berlin, recreates a vanished era and dramatises a doomed relationship with nerve, depth and poignancy. The result is a miniature masterpiece. And reading a couple of pages when I was in the bookstore, it's even got the receipt still in. Reading a couple of pages in the bookstore, I realised quite early on that this guy is very much infatuated with this woman. And he's really like putting all his eggs in one basket. But I really like infatuation. Infatuation is such a strange love thing it's weird, it's almost bordering on the creepy, but it's also cannot be. It's somebody's love for somebody is so intense. I'm not a big person who loves romance novels. However, this really got to me. I think that the fact that I'm not a big historical romance person, but the fact that it's done in a different era. I've also been to Berlin, which has a little soft spot in my heart because it's a beautiful city. I think that this is going to be really enjoyable. I think the fact that he's infatuated is really going to kind of hook me in. And I'm excited to see where it goes, because infatuation is never a good thing. So yeah, I'm really, really interested. Romance to me is like a hard thing to get into, and I think because our local like chain stores don't really put romance into a section of its own, so you'll see I see sci-fi, fantasy, crime, fiction, and then non-fiction in my bookstore. They have a section for YA and kids that are also separate, but there is never a romance section, so it's never something I really gravitate towards purposefully, because it means that I have to rifle through all the fiction to find them. I have read books with romantic elements, but I've never picked them because of romance in particular. They're not something they have to have something else, something extra to give. Like maybe there's some fantasy and some big story and the romance is just a little add-on perk, or yeah, I don't know. There is not many books that I've read where it's just solely the romance. It's just me. But I'm really excited to try this out, and it'll be nice to read it since I did buy it last year and brand new. The last challenge was read a book from a different continent to where you live. So I live in the UK, and I really like Japanese authors' written works. And I went to an independent bookstore this year, just before lockdown. This independent bookstore is a few towns over from mine, and I really like to support them. So when I go, I usually have a look through and I find something different that I've not seen in my local chain bookstore. And I usually try and buy something. Even if it's not in my budget, I usually try and buy one book. So this occasion, I picked up this book, which is Osawa Murders by Riku Onda. This is a mystery crime novel, which is also another kind of book genre that I've never fully gotten into or read and wouldn't mind doing so. So that could also count for that. The story is based in the 1970s Japan. Owners of a prominent local hospital host a large birthday party in their villa on the sea of Japan. And the occasion turns into tragedy when 17 people die of cyanide poisoning. Cyanide which is placed in their drinks. The only clues to what might have happened are cryptic verses that could be the killers. The fact that Osawa's blind daughter was the only family member spared death is weird. So, reading the back, there is still more blurb to it. I'm not going to read that to you now, though. You can look it up or whatever. But reading that blurb really hooked me, and I was like, I have to read this. They have like a table full of like books that stood up. So I picked this one out because straight away I noticed that it was a Japanese writer that I'd never heard of. I'm not sure if it's newly translated or when it was newly translated. Let me see if it says. English translation 2020, so it is very newly translated. I'm really looking forward to reading this, and she is the winner of the Mystery Writers of Japan Award for Fiction. New to me writer, I've never heard of her before, so I'm really, really excited. I think it's gonna be really interesting read, and yeah, if you've never read that before, also take a look maybe. I am not gonna be able to read all of these 6 books in a week. The Reading Rush is basically a whole week where you try and read as much as possible. But like these 2 books are like 400 pages long. Nearly 3. And this one is a really friendly reading, slow reading friends book. It's 167. So I probably most likely will get through this. And then I will probably also most likely try and get through as much of this as possible. So I'm aiming for these 2 because that's the most reading that I'll probably get through. I'm not a quick reader. However, the plan was that if I needed to condense down the challenges, I was going to read these 3 because I felt like these 3 filled them pretty well. But that's still a lot of reading. So for the challenges, book picked by your birthstone, I was going to pick Binding because it's still got some purple amongst it. A book that starts with They All Do. And then book that inspired a movie would also be The Virgin Suicides. And The First Book You Touched would also be that one. And then read and complete a book outside your house. I was thinking I could basically open the back door and read there and pick one of these. I could interpretate the genre you'd like to get more into with the Osawa murders, and same with the book from a different continent. So that was a condensed version of my Reading Rush challenge, but I think highly likely I will only get to read these 2. We will see. Yeah, so that's my Reading Rush for July. I also wanted to just quickly chat to you about the books that I also intend on reading. So for July, I intend on finishing reading The American Psycho. Or American Psycho, because it's not the. I want to really finish this pretty soon. So this is where I tend to be today, and I'm hoping that I will get to read the last maybe 100 pages early on, beginning of next week, because I have next week and then I have a week off, and I really want to read and finish this tome, The Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas has been lingering way too long. I picked this up at the beginning of March, before lockdown. I read half of it. I am not meshing with this book very well, and I think that there is a very big divide of people who really enjoyed A Court of Thorns and Roses, really loved that book series, and then they've gotten to this and there's been a very big meh situation. It's a whole new world, I get that. It is a whole new book world. It's full of new names, new concepts, new places, a lot of things that you have to soak in all at once in the beginning. And when lockdown was happening, I was pretty stressed. I found it so hard to take in the information that I stopped reading it. And then I picked it back up again and I continued and I got to halfway, which was really good for me. But it was hard work. So I don't know if anybody else has read this. I am struggling with it. And I intend that over the next couple of weeks, I am going to try and finish it. I think for a first book, it is very big. It is also very heavy. I had to kind of stop halfway through the book because I was struggling to hold it anymore. The weight of the book when I was holding it was flaring up a bit of a health condition that I have, and my arms were like heavy and aching. My joints were sore, and I was just like, this is no longer worth it. I do have, for smaller books, I have a gimbal book holder which I put it in and I can have it in my lap. This, however, I can't. The gimbal doesn't stretch big enough, unfortunately for me. I challenged myself to get this done in those 2 weeks. My Goodreads challenge this year is now 3 books down. It was 2 books up until this morning when I had a look, and it has changed to 3. So I'm a slow reader, and my challenge last year was 16, the year before 12, and I met my 16 last year. I put it up by another 4, so I aimed to be in the 20s. And I'm now 3 behind. So, and I feel like some of the reason why I'm 3 behind is because of this book. Because I put it down numerous amount of times, because I've felt a little bit like it's a slog at some points. I've gotten into some of the characters now, and they are starting to feel like I know them better, but I stopped because I just needed a break from it, because it's so big. Also, I'm not fully invested in the characters. So although the characters, I always feel like with the characters, if I'm not fully invested in them, I don't care what happens to them, then I'm not fully invested in the story in the book. And I feel a little bit like this with this book. So I'm not gelling with them yet. I've not found a reason to love them. I've not found a reason behind how the story is going, like how I just don't feel in touch with them anymore, like yet. And I feel like as the story may develop, I might change my mind, but I just don't believe I will. So we'll see. But I would really like to finish this. Then I have the intention of the reading rush of reading the 2 books, which might mean that I've gone past my 3 that I needed. Cross fingers. I'll have to give you an update on how I'm doing with my reading. But then I also intend on reading the remaining books in the remainder of August and September. This is my plan because I feel like I have put these in the forefront of my mind as books I want to read. And I do want to read these. They are part of my book collection, so why would I not? So I really want to read these now. This is becoming another challenge for me, that in 2 months I am going to read these and get my Reading Rush books read. I'm really excited for that, so hopefully I'll keep you updated on how that goes too. So, thank you for spending some time with me. I am Kiltercraft on Instagram if you want to check me out. I do a lot of crafts but I've also been reading a lot lately, so maybe you might want to join me. I have been thinking about making a bookstagram, and obviously my YouTube channel is craft related, but hopefully I'm integrating more book episodes. So if you're into that, please subscribe and stick around. I am new to this, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed what I've shared with you today, and I will keep you posted on what I'm reading and completing. Thank you, and see you soon.